After 40 days of fasting, the devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread." Perform a sign. Let's see a good speech act. Something prophetic. How does Jesus answer? The way he answers all three temptations. He goes to Deuteronomy. And we got to go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. Remember the long way that the Lord your God has made you travel in the wilderness these past 40 years. Where is Jesus? He's just spent 40 days in the wilderness. Remember the long way the Lord your God has made you travel. Who led Jesus into the wilderness? The Holy Spirit led him into the wilderness. That he might test you by hardships to learn what was in your hearts, whether you would keep his commandments or not. He subjected you to the hardship of hunger. And then he gave you manna to eat, which neither you nor your fathers had ever known, in order to teach you, and here's what Jesus replies from Deuteronomy, to teach you that man or a human being does not live on bread alone, but that he may live on anything that the Lord decrees. We don't live by bread alone, but by everything that comes from God. Whatever God provides, we can hold on to. And in this case, it was manna. It was the stuff that you could eat. The word manna means, what is it? So they didn't even know what it was, but they could eat it. Bear in mind that the Lord your God disciplines you just as a man disciplines his son. Awesome. If you're the Son of God, turn the stone into bread. No, I am the Son. I'm not going to rebel after 40 days of discipline. Basically, Satan's offer is to be a false prophet. Jesus' counter response, no. I'm going to do it the right way. Israel didn't do it the right way, but I am Israel doing it right. All three quotes are Deuteronomy. All three quotes come from Moses' instructions on how Israel is to flourish, inherit the land, remain there. And Jesus is doing it. The Jewish authorities say the same thing later on. Just give us a sign. Give us a sign and we'll follow you. But he knows their hearts. He knows that it's not coming from trust, a position of trust that they're demanding that sign. It's to test them. Their notions of what it means to be delivered by the Messiah are profoundly wrong, profoundly mistaken. And so the sign they want, they won't believe anyway. And for him to give them the sign they do want would be for him to be a false prophet. So he says, a wicked and perverse generation seeks a sign, and no sign will be given it, except one, the sign of Jonah. Jonah was 3 days under and then out. And the Son of Man will be 3 days under and then out. I'll give you a true sign, but no false signs. So note, in all three cases, the correspondence between what the devil is saying in the wilderness and what the crowds, the leaders, the disciples, all the rest offer later on. The devil here is embodying conventional wisdom. Conventional theology. The theology of Job's friends, which sounds so right. But it's false. Jesus returns from the wilderness. Let's pick up Luke here. Verse 14. Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee. This is important, especially prominent in Luke. The Spirit who rests on him, the Spirit who led him in the wilderness. Into Galilee, and a report concerning him went out through all the surrounding country, and he taught in their synagogues, being glorified by all. And he came to Nazareth. So he circles around his hometown, and then finally he comes to his hometown. And he went to the synagogue, as his custom was, on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And there was given to him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And he opened the book and found the place where this was written. And now he reads Isaiah chapter 61. And I've brought this to you before, but listen to it now in the context of Jesus the prophet. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for the Lord has anointed me, christened me, to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind. To proclaim release is to release. That's a speech act, like the Emancipation Proclamation in America was a speech act. It was words that freed. To set at liberty those who are oppressed. To proclaim the Jubilee year or the acceptable year of the Lord. And he closed the book and he gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fixed on him. So now what? And he began to say to them. Why does it say he began to say to them? Because they cut him off. He never gets to finish saying what he was going to say. He gets this far. Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing. I'm the one that fulfills this passage. And he's cut off. They all speak well of him. And they said, wow. And they wondered at the gracious words that proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, isn't that Joseph's son? Hey. Isn't that the guy who built our porch? There's disbelief there. Son of God, son of God, son of God, and then Joseph's son? Son of Joseph? But there's another note here that Jesus picks up. Hey, if that's Joseph's son, he's one of us. Where's he been all this time? Why was he out in Galilee preaching when he should have come home? Right? Good boys come home after long trips. When you go home for 4-day or for Thanksgiving break, don't go see your friends first. See your family first. Then go see your friends. All right? Trust me on this. It'll pay off in the long run. But here, Jesus is not being a good boy. He said to them, doubtless you'll quote to me this proverb, physician, heal yourself. What does that mean? That means take care of your own self first. Don't go giving advice that you won't take. But here's what they mean. What we have heard you did at Capernaum, do also here in your own country. This is a tribal society. This is a familial society. You take care of your own. You take care of insiders. You take care of your family. You don't go spreading good stuff to other people and neglect your family. You respect the structures of the society. You don't work outside those structures. And here's what Jesus says back, having read their hearts. Truly I say to you, no prophet is acceptable in his own country. But in truth, I tell you, there were many widows in Israel in the days of Elijah when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there came a great famine. And Elijah was sent to none of them, but only to Zarephath in the land of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow. An outsider got the mercy there from that prophet. And there were many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha. And none of them was cleansed, but only Naaman, the Syrian. Prophets work outside the structures. My family doesn't come first. My Father comes first. My mission comes first. And when they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with wrath. And they rose up and they put him out of the city and they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, that they might throw him down headlong. They try to kill him. This is what happens to prophets. Their revolutionary words are rejected, but they work anyway. Passing through the midst of them, he went away. It's not his hour yet. That is Christ's prophetic mission. He lays it out himself in the book of Luke, in the Gospel of Luke, at the beginning of his ministry. I'm here to proclaim good news, deliverance, release, acceptance. The Spirit who anoints him is the Spirit of prophecy. And the content of his speaking is, again and again, characterizable as the kingdom. He preaches the kingdom. He announces the approach of the kingdom, this new arrangement. He is bringing it into being with his word. He isn't just announcing it, he is enacting it. But Jesus' signs and wonders and his words and deeds are misunderstood. They lead to more and more rejection, more and more polarization. What you see happen in Galilee in chapter 4 keeps happening, and it gets graver and graver. It's rejected. Prophets don't have a smooth ride in life because they rub us the wrong way. They disrupt. They uproot. They overthrow. They tear down. They destroy. And we fight back. This comes to a head during the last week of his life when he comes in to Jerusalem. And he goes to the temple and he overturns the tables in the temple. The usual interpretations are, he's upset at the greed of the people and such, and he's making a stand against capitalism or whatever. Well, a better way to approach this is to go to the passage, look in context, see what it is he's doing. He has just finished, we're in Luke 19, he has just finished weeping over the city. The day shall come upon you when your enemies will cast up a bank about you and surround you and hem you on every side and dash you to the ground because you didn't know the time of your visitation. This upsets him horribly. Would that even today you knew the things that make for peace. And he entered the temple and he began to drive out those who sold, saying to them, it is written, my house shall be a house of prayer. He's quoting Isaiah 56. When this time of refreshing has come, when the new order that the prophet has announced arrives, my house will be a house of prayer. That's an eschatological prophecy. That's about the future. But you have made it a den of robbers. And that's also prophecy. Jeremiah chapter 7. This is important. Stand at the gate of the house of the Lord and there proclaim this word. Mend your ways and your actions, and I'll let you dwell in this place. Don't put your trust in illusions and say, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. Like, we've got the temple. We're safe as long as the temple's here because that's where God is. And so if God's with us, we're going to be okay. If you truly mend your ways and your actions, if you execute justice between one human and another, if you don't oppress the stranger, the orphan, the widow, if you don't shed the blood of the innocent in this place, if you don't follow other gods, then only will I let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave your fathers for all time. But you're relying on illusions that are of no avail. Will you steal and murder and commit adultery and swear falsely and sacrifice to Baal and father other gods whom you've not known? And then come and stand before me in this house, which bears my name, and say, we are safe? This house, which bears my name, has been a den of robbers. Go to the place at Shiloh where I had established my name formerly, and see what I did to it because of the wickedness of my people Israel. And now, because you do all these things, and though I spoke to you persistently, you wouldn't listen. Therefore, I will do to the house which bears my name, on which you rely. I'll do just what I did to Shiloh. What Jesus is doing when he's overturning the tables and saying these things is he's proclaiming this is over. This system is over. These structures have failed, and God is removing them. It's not a protest against greed. I mean, yes, it is, but it's in the context of a prophetic eschatological judgment on the structures of Israel that they will be no more. Instead, what will come to pass is the prophecy. My house shall be a house of prayer for all nations. And Jesus is the one who's going to accomplish this. And when the authorities hear this, they know what he's saying. And it's here in Luke. He was teaching daily in the temple, and the chief priests and the scribes and the principal men of the people sought to destroy him. They realize we can't have this false prophet prophesying the destruction of God's own temple. And so the cross is the cross of a prophet. An accused false prophet, or maybe a true prophet.